Sup, y'all? It's me. It's your boy Asmongold, and recently there have been a couple of blue posts that have come out that I want to talk to you guys about. First one's going to be about legendaries, and the second one is going to be about artifact power in patch 7.2 going forward. And they also provided a little bit of a retrospective on artifact power thus far in Legion, with some insights, developer insights into some perceived shortcomings of artifact power in regards to emergent player behavior. More specifically, the way that people felt like they had to farm out the Paragon traits, the traits 35 to 54, in order to stay competitive with rating. So I obviously want to give you my commentary about this, but at the same time, I want to make sure y'all know about this shit because I actually had no fucking idea, especially with the legendary thing. Not only did I not know this was true, but I thought the opposite was. I'm so glad to be wrong. So here's what they're doing, what they've already done with the legendary system. There is no diminishing returns on getting your legendaries, right? So people think that after you got your fourth legendary or fifth legendary, getting your sixth one is even harder and getting your seventh one is even harder and all of that because that's how it used to work. That's not true. That doesn't work anymore. Getting the chance of getting your third legendary is the exact same chance comparatively with the bad luck protection. It occurs the exact same whenever you get your third legendary as it would occur whenever you got your eighth legendary. So, and also the reason I excluded 1 and 2 is that the first legendary that you get does have an increased chance to drop, and the second legendary you get does have an increased but not as increased chance to drop. So you do get your first two legendaries very quickly, but after that you don't. You get them at the same rate. It doesn't matter how many more you have after that, and there is no diminishing returns, which is I thought there was, and I apparently am wrong. The odds are, guys, if you're not happy with WoW right now, it's probably one of three things, if not all three. And at least these things are, one of these is probably on your list: legendaries, artifact power, or Titan forging slash like gear RNG. Okay, so the legendaries have always been a very contentious part of the expansion, probably the most contentious, and I would say probably the most universally disliked system in the game so far, at least for Legion. And I can obviously see why. Whenever they first came out, there was a thing like you could target them, then they got rid of that, and then once you got your first legendary, it was harder. And so if you got the wrong legendary, you were in a really, really bad spot. But at least now you're not punished for being unlucky. Okay, and I think that's really what's important here. And I always felt like the whole idea of not allowing people to get all of the legendaries if they play a lot was kind of silly to me, because if being able to use the right two legendaries in an encounter makes you that much more powerful, that it makes that big of a power difference between that person and a person that has the two wrong legendaries, maybe the problem lies with the balancing between legendaries and not which ones people have. I feel like in general, the balance between, like, let's say having Pyraz or something like that compared to having the Fury Warrior Legendary Helmet is just so massive. Or having, even better example, is having the Warrior Heroic Leap shoulders as like a Fury Warrior. The difference, the damage increase that that's going to give you compared to the damage increase that the Legendary Helmet is going to give you is night and day. I mean, the Legendary Helmet is so much more powerful. So maybe they should look at trying to make those different those items, they should give them some form of comparative power, right? And I feel like that's something that they really fell short on, especially at the beginning of the expansion, whereas now it's not quite as bad. So that's a really big relief that legendaries no longer have any sort of, I guess for lack of a better term, I hate to use this, but it's kind of true, they don't really have good luck protection to where you can't get too lucky, right? So that's pretty much what's happening, or what's already happened with legendaries. So very happy about that. Also, they mentioned that there's like these websites. I think one of them's called like Kill Points or something like that, where it kind of tracks how many times you've looted or done something that's going to give you a legendary. They just straight up said that data is extremely outdated and their conclusions are extremely inaccurate. So don't fucking use that website and think that you're going to get close to a legendary, okay? Just apparently it's wrong. So that's what's happening with legendaries. Now with artifact power, this is a post made by Ian Asakostas Watcher, who's the game director of WoW. Now, basically, what they're saying is they're going to make artifact power in patch 7.2 much harder to actually cap out, because at this point right now, artifact power right now doesn't keep scaling exponentially in the same way that it does from traits 1 to 34. After you get to 35, their traits kind of level off, whereas I think the amount that you need for 35 is something like 1.6 million, and the amount that you need for 54 is 4.6 or 4.4 or 4.7 million, one of those three. So there isn't that same exponential growth curve that would occur. Like if it still had the same curve that it had for all the first 34 traits, the last trait would cost something like I don't know, like 20 million or 30 million artifact power, right? And so obviously it kind of levels off. And because of that, people have felt like they have to continue grinding out those traits in order to stay relevant and in order to stay competitive because of how powerful those traits are. The difference between somebody having only the 35th trait and somebody having all 54 traits is 11.5% damage, and also it gives you a lot of stamina at the same time. He said it's like having an entire tier difference between gear. I don't really know if that's accurate, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that the game director knows more than I do. So obviously, it creates a huge difference regardless of how much that you want to really compare it to. So what he's going to be doing, what they're going to be doing in patch 7.2 is the artifact power is going to be scaling more exponentially throughout the entire, because they are refunding back. They're getting rid of the Paragon trait. They're getting rid of all the Paragon traits, and they're refunding everything back to 34 talents and or 34 traits, and then you can put them back in, but the traits scale so much higher, so much faster. So originally the idea, what was originally found out that turned out to be untrue, is that you would need to do 1,000 Maw plus 6 to plus 9 keys with Artifact Knowledge 40 in order to max out your weapon, and that's comparing to now where you have to do, I think the number was 261. So it's a huge difference, 4 times as much basically that you'd have to do in patch 7.2 to max out your weapon again. And obviously people went apeshit about that. I really hoped that it wasn't true, and it turned out to not be true, which is great. But what they're going to be doing now is they're going to make artifact knowledge scale a lot more, and they're also going to make artifact power requirements scale a lot more. So the idea here is for them to kind of keep everybody closer together in terms of their power, right? So if you don't really play a lot, you're not going to be 15% weaker than somebody who plays all the time. So he gave some numbers on, I guess, like how much the difference is going to be. So here's what he said here. We're still tuning the curve for 7.2 traits, but we're currently targeting scaling that someone who earns twice as much artifact power as me will have an artifact that's only about 1.5% stronger. Someone who earns 4 times as much artifact power as me should only be 3% stronger. On the whole, this shouldn't be a massive reduction in this should be a massive reduction in the power gaps that we see in the live game today. So in a way, I think this is kind of this is good, and also another big change, the good change, okay? Because I do have a little bit of mixed feelings about the way that they're doing this, because I think it just kind of it's like a hard cap without it being a hard cap, and it kind of encourages apathy, I think, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But one thing that's really good that they're doing is that I'll read this here. The second problem with our initial implementation is that repeatable sources of artifact power, Mythic Keystone dungeons in particular, dominated time-limited sources such as emissary caches and raid bosses. The fact that a large portion of the community evaluates their artifact power needs using Maw runs as a unit of measurement is ample evidence of this failure. We very recently deployed a hotfix to increase the artifact power earned from Nighthold in order to make raiding and with a weekly lockout better compare in efficiency to Mythic Keystone runs. And in 7.2, we're going to be thoroughly addressing this issue by adding a significant amount of artifact power to the weekly Mythic Keystone cache, while somewhat reducing and normalizing based on dungeon and based on instance length the artifact power by repeated runs. These changes are made to narrow the gap in AP earning, thus power based on time investment. And about fucking time. Like, I don't know how they didn't, like, how is this not something that you guys would have figured out in alpha? I mean, it just seems like common sense. It's happening, like 6 months after. And I mean, like, I'm not going to complain too much because I'm happy that it's happening. But I mean, like, come on. Of course Halls of Valor or Archway should give more artifact power than Maw of Souls. I mean, how could you not come to that conclusion when one takes literally less than half the time as the other one? But this is good, because in 7.2, Halls of Valor and Archway will give comparatively more artifact power than Maw of Souls or Court of Stars. So that's good if you like to run longer dungeons, or you have something out of those dungeons that you want to get, but you feel like you're setting yourself at a disadvantage by doing those dungeons because they don't necessarily, they don't give the same, they're not the most optimal path. So the other thing that they're going to be doing is basically, as I said before, they're going to be kind of, I guess, like keeping everybody on more of an even playing field. And I feel like Blizzard has done a lot to artificially level the playing field of players, and to the point to where it almost has created a bit of apathy among people who play a lot, because they know that even if they play a lot, the progress that they make now is only going to be half as easy or twice as easy for the person to make, another person to make the next week, right? So it kind of creates a system where, why would I work hard this week whenever I can just wait until next week and do it with literally half the effort? Because if you're talking about exponential artifact knowledge scaling, there's going to be a point where you're going from 50,000% increase to 70 or 80,000% increase, or something like that. Like, the increases are going to be massive. So it's going to be something like almost double towards the end. I don't really know. Okay, I'm not really sure what these numbers are going to be. But if they do keep the scaling the same way, I mean, you guys remember, like, whenever you are going from, like, artifact knowledge 20 to 25, that's like 10,000% to 25,000%. And I think 24 is like almost 25,000 already. So you make these huge leaps and bounds in just a few points. And obviously at the end there, you're going to be doing the same thing if they continue the same exponential function. So in a way, I kind of am a little bit worried about this, because it's going to make raiders feel like they have to do something, but also it's going to kind of give a certain level of futility, of an idea of futility of the system, because what you're doing, you're just going to be able to do the next week, and it's going to take half the amount of time. I feel also, let me think, like, what is the rest of this that I've wanted to talk about. I think this is the main thing: flat scaling and keeping the exponential throughout. This is another thing. I feel like with a lot of these grinds in Legion, one thing that I haven't really enjoyed about Legion, probably my biggest complaint about it, is that as somebody, I consider myself kind of a completionist, right? And I feel like a game and a challenge that has no end is oftentimes not worth beginning. And I feel like with so many of these systems, like the Legendary system, the now Artifact Power system, and just the Titan Forging system, the three that I talked about earlier, all three of those have no real end. Yeah, it's impossible really to get all of the legendaries. It's going to be nearly impossible until artifact knowledge completely catches up to get all of the different traits. It's going to be impossible basically to get all 895, or sorry, 925 gear with sockets now. So as somebody who wants to get the absolute best gear and have a feeling of completion with my character, even if it's for just a point in time, for like a tier or for the end of the expansion, that no longer can exist for me. And I can understand how this is a 1% problem. I really can. But I feel like giving people some form of closure with these systems does give them a sense of achievement and a sense of accomplishment. And whenever you can never really say, okay, I did it. You know, like I remember whenever I got my 54 traits with my artifact weapon, my first one, my arms weapon, I was really, really happy. I was completely satisfied. I felt good that next day. I could log on and I didn't really feel like I had to do something. I could just relax and enjoy the game. And I didn't feel like there was this thing that was nagging me to do that I wasn't quite finished with. And, you know, I felt like there was a lot more of that back in the day. And now everything is just like this open-ended, endless progression system that I feel burns people out and also creates a level of apathy, because not now people are not quitting because they finished their gear set. They're quitting because they give up. And I think that having somebody quit because they finished their armor set is better than having them quit because they're just they become apathetic towards improving their character. It's kind of like a psychological thing. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that or not, but that's kind of like my perception of it, and it's been something that's bothered me ever since they introduced Thunder Forging back in Throne of Thunder. So they're also going to be increasing, basically they're going to be decreasing the amount of AP that you get from, just in general, from Mythic Plus dungeons, and they're going to be increasing it from world quests and from raids and other things that are not basically Mythic Plus dungeons that are not repeatable. This is a good change. I think that's a good idea. It gets people doing more stuff. So basically that's kind of the way that I feel about it. Obviously the system is, in a way, I just feel like they're doing too many arbitrary and, it's like everybody's on a roller coaster and they're trying to put everybody on the same cart, and they're worried about people moving ahead a little bit too fast. And I feel like for people, even people that aren't like super serious about the game, they still want to be able to play at their own pace. And the way that artifact knowledge is going to kind of pace people's play in this way, because after you get the next level, you're going to see, obviously, once you get to that point, it's going to be just futile to try and get to the next one because of the what is it, the exponential increases, right? It's like trying to get the trait level 35 at like AP 10 or something, or AK 10. It would be ridiculous. So I feel like it does create a bit of apathy, and I don't really think that's ever going to be good for the game. But I can see why they're doing this. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that it is a completely legitimate problem that people feel like they're compelled to log on and play all the time and do Mythic Plus dungeons over and over and over, even though they don't like it, because they feel like they have to get those Paragon points, and the Paragon points are that important, right? Because Nighthold Mythic. It is very hard to do. So obviously people need to bring in every advantage that they possibly can. So I really hope that they're doing this with the right intentions in mind. I feel like they're doing a little bit too much to handicap players and to keep everybody in line and in, like as I said, that same roller coaster cart, or whatever you want to call it. I feel like they should give people a little bit more control over their own progression in the game. And at the level that AK is going to be scaling, that progression is effectively taken away because of just how useless your time is going to be made just if you don't just wait, right? It's going to be literally like you're just spending half as much time and you're going to get to the same place if you just wait another week, right? That's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like the concern that Ian's bringing up here is completely legitimate, completely real. But at the same time, I feel like the system fundamentally is going to create that no matter what, and that's just a negative outcome of the system. I'm not saying the system's bad, but this is definitely a negative outcome that's going to happen regardless. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much my opinions and what's going on with these blue posts. Good things and things that I have mixed feelings about. So I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. That's kind of what I think, though. Good and bad. We'll see how it plays out. And I think that's probably the best way I can say it, is that we'll see how it plays out. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.